Tell me about a guy who, for people who are really like, wow, man, I'm getting interested in blues. I didn't pay much attention before. If you could mention, let's say 3 guys here, excluding Steve Ramp, who might intimidate, that you would say, hey, listen to these 3 guys. They will be very important for you to understand the blues language. Even though it's so broad, but 3 guys.
So you have to try to be more obscure, right? Because I can't say it's in...
I think you say, hey, I think it would be a good start. I think it's good. Because the beauty is people, hey, I want to listen to jazz. Who do you listen to? Do you put Joko, Trent, Charlie Parks, Scares the Kids, right? Because you won't understand anything, right? So that's why I tried to leave out Steve Ray, who I think is very difficult for someone who's just starting to copy his style, right? Very virtuosic. So go ahead, 3 guys then.
Oh, so it doesn't have to be obscure, right? It can't be... It doesn't have to be someone unknown. No. Oh, okay.
Man, you say like, wow, ooh, man, would this be a good start here?
I would definitely go with...
It can even be modern. It can even be more recent.
No, I think I would listen to Muddy Waters, really, to understand the whole thing about Chicago blues, right? Muddy Waters is a great innovator, right? Even today, we have the issue of people say, in the state, we call it blues police, right? The blues police. Here, we call them the cheetahs of the blues. You've heard this expression, right? Yes, yes, yes. Where people come and say, oh, this isn't blues, oh, this isn't blues, and so on. Muddy Waters was a guy who, at the time, played acoustic blues and so on, left the southern region of the United States, went to Chicago for better opportunities, working conditions, a port city with things happening there. Suddenly, he goes from a rural place to a place with electricity. Suddenly, he goes from playing for a small audience to playing in a larger venue that requires amplification, with electricity in the city. Suddenly, he picks up his guitar, switches to an electric one, moves away from the acoustic, and plugs into an amp. I think of Little Walter, a harmonica player who grabs one of those bullet microphones, takes the harmonica, plugs it into a guitar amp, and they are doing something completely different from what had been done before. Super modern for the time. And nowadays, we listen to this, and it's blues, traditional. So that happens a lot. So the importance of Maury Wars is this. For you, he is a guy who was super innovative, but what he did became so important that it turned into tradition.
What would you tell people to pay attention to in his style?
Well, the Chicago blues, right? That shuffle thing, that more lively vibe, right? Of course, there are the slow ones too. His slide playing is very cool, very economical too. The singing is amazing, right? The 12-bar blues, for people to understand the forms. The blues, because usually when we say, oh, have you ever heard blues? The person says, oh, I don't know what it is. If you play the riff from Ruchi Cucci no Manish Boy, right? Boom, 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 boom. Everyone has heard it. Like, oh, I've heard this. Wow, is this what blues is? This is one of the things that is blues, right? But it's what became so... So that's why I would recommend Maury Wars. I would definitely go with Albert King, who is the biggest influence on Steve Ray. And why him then? Albert King, because to me, he was the guy who did more with less. Good. Like, in a little house, just with one string, he played 50 notes with those crazy bends of his, 2 tones and 1.5 tones, 1.75, like some really crazy things like that. Quarter tones, right? Those things. He was a guy who did a lot of that, and Steve picked up a lot from him too, right? So, definitely Albert King. And I think I would also go with Clapton too, to get a bit of that British perspective on blues, to have a bit of the blues rock perspective of... And Clapton has many influences, right? In the albums he recorded with John Mayer, right? The Blues Breakers, that one, the Beano album, right? The one where I don't know if it's him with the magazine, I don't know who it is, but anyway. It's a very famous album where he used the Marshall, which later came to be called the Marshall Blues Breakers, right? Because of this album. And it was just that he recorded like that tone that became very famous. So it's an album I also recommend. I would go with those 3.
And do you also think that, I have this impression, man, people misunderstand Eric Clapton a lot. At least here in Brazil, right, man? Obviously, when you take Eric Clapton as an artist, okay, I mean, as a guitarist, especially maybe a generation from 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I think that shred rock also, in a way, affected these guys like Eric Clapton, kind of mistreated them, you know? Do you have the impression that people also misunderstand Eric Clapton because he doesn't have that virtuosity of the shred crowd and they see him as just a guy?
Oh, it's not that much, not that cool. Do you think that's it? Like, I've noticed that about him, yes, from people thinking that way about him. Here's the thing, during the Cream era, when he formed the trio with Ginger Breakers and the... My name of...
The bassist? Yes. Oh, I won't remember, no.
Damn, someone will remember. I can't forget this one. Sacrilege. But anyway, he was more virtuosic at that time. He had a more powerful sound. I thought he was playing fuzz back then, but after doing some research, I found out it was just the amp and the more powerful sound he was making. That thing about the woman tone, right? Woman tone, right? Under the feminine tone, that expression they had there. To make the tone more velvety. A softer thing, anyway. It sounds like fuzz to me, but I heard he wasn't using it at that time. But anyway, he was really virtuosic. That solo from Crossroads, from their live version, from that show there, like, he's playing a ton of notes. That phase is my favorite of his. I think he's really amazing. But I think he developed his style and maybe leaned more towards a different direction. Composer and singer. And then I think he started to pay less attention to the guitar and changed the way he played. He started playing differently, and ever since he began using Fender as well, he changed a lot. His tone, right? The blues break, no, the blues break, not the bassman, right? That more crystalline tone, that more twangy thing, right? More twangy, tougher. I think cool too, but he went in another direction, right? He changed, incorporated reggae as well, other things, more pop. Anyway, I think he stopped being just a guitarist and became more of an artist.
Yeah, and it's funny, like, take George Benson. Do you know George Benson well? Like, I know. Man, there's a guy who really discourages you. Him playing Take 5 at that Montreal show. Wow, man.
It's absurd.
Absurd. He was in beast mode, as people call it, right?
Yeah.
And then he started singing a lot, very pop. And he became a global artist, right, man? From playing on a cruise with the older ladies dancing smooth jazz. And he also changed. In a way, despite always playing incredibly, the guy ends up playing the instrument less too. The guy's life takes him to another path. In a way, you're living a bit of that. It's no longer Arthur playing guitar for 2-3 hours every day. Some adaptations need to be made. Some things don't come out the way they used to. Do you also feel that, man, some things you suddenly like to do, you don't do anymore, or do you handle it super chill? Do you see this as a new Arthur? Talk about it.
I kind of don't stop much to think about it, but you mentioned it. For example, it happened, it must have been a few months ago. Let me see. I moved back to LA because I was living elsewhere. I moved back in February. I think it must have been last year. Still, one of the months of last year. There were some days when I picked up and put on the records and started jamming like I used to when I was younger. And I spent a good amount of time playing at home, right? Something I hadn't done. And like, it brought me so much joy, you know. The guy took me, brought me back to the past and all. Man, how cool, how good this is. So I miss that, right? But that's it. As you said, life takes us down different paths, responsibilities, right? The choices we have, other things that aren't even our choices, but the results of choices that we don't have control over, and we just have to go with the flow.
But you don't suffer from that at all. In relation, I mean, for example, the T-Red musician, the jazz musician who likes virtuosic things, bebop, he's more trapped, I think, you know. He needs to be in that groove of practicing.
To not lose the
edge, right? Mike Steve is like that. There are several guys who are like that. Eduardo Miriam himself told me a story that Mike Steve used to tell here in Rio at some point, and he invited him to play in the hotel room. And he said that when he got there, Mike had a notebook, like 300, 400 pages, where he kept going over various licks and phrases. And he took this man, it was like religious. Man, I'm going to play, I'm going to stay here for 2 hours beforehand. Chris Porter, have you heard of the saxophonist? Wherever he goes, man, he says, I need 3 hours here before doing anything, okay? So, but 3 religious hours. Man, that's awesome. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, like, you see that he's a musician with a different mindset, a different path. He's not singing. He's not composing. That's not his thing. So for you to have gone down this path, you're totally at ease. With this, what I gave up, or these things, man, they don't represent me anymore. They don't hurt me. There's no need to...
I'm fine, yes, because it was really a choice. Also, the outcome and how things are happening, that's beyond my control. But it was indeed a choice to stop listening to guitar, to invest more in the voice aspect, to write lyrics, to want to express what I feel, to change the approach of the lyrics, right? The lyrics changed a lot. Yeah, it was intentional what I wanted.
If you watch this clip from Starling Cast, you can watch the full episode here in the video description. And take advantage if you're a guitarist to join the largest virtual school in Brazil, exclusive for guitarists, by clicking on the QR code or in the video description. I'll be waiting for you there.